What the Speak, episode 59. Well, tamalama ding dang.
Do you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch? If not, these expert discussions and insider tips can help you right now, today. Welcome to the What the Speak podcast. I'm your host, Brian Kelly.
I want to thank you so much for either listening to or watching today's episode. If you love What the Speak, please do me a big favor and help spread the word. Go to whatthespeak.com/love. Again, it means the world to have your support and your enthusiasm, so thank you. Vanessa Horn, are you ready to answer the question, what the speak?
Let's roll.
All right. So Vanessa, you are a business coach and a trainer. You're also a speaker and author. You've built and sold several successful businesses over the years. We should talk about a little bit. And this is all not to mention that you've been featured on several morning shows across the U.S. on various networks. So thanks so much for coming today and talking with us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Now, Vanessa, when you get out on the stage in front of an audience, or if you go and you're doing a training with a smaller, more intimate group, what are typically the topics that you usually speak on in kind of your particular area of expertise?
My particular area of expertise has to do with sales. Is a huge area. So how to do it authentically without being salesy or pushy, how to create a powerful brand that's authentically yourself so that you're marketing yourself and being able to monetize your passions in the marketplace. And then lastly, with women empowerment, and I have a book that's in the process of being written now called I'll Have What She's Having, and it's how do you get in touch with who you really are and why you're here? So it's becoming the woman you want to be by loving the woman you are. And it's women being their most powerful selves and stepping into that.
Now, I mean, that's a really interesting topic. The first couple of ones that you mentioned, there's a lot of folks have a lot of varied approaches to like sales and personal branding and so on and so forth. And then you've got this third category here. And I was curious, out of those three or so topics that you're usually speaking on, have you found that this last one is one that's really resonating with folks? Because it's kind of a unique twist.
It's, this came out of my question to myself. That was, Vanessa, if this were the last year of your life, what would you do? And I've spent all the last years that I've been an entrepreneur now, since 2003. So 11 years as an entrepreneur, helping people make money, showing them how to reach their goals. And that's my primary income has been teaching people how to make money. And so when I asked myself, if this were the last year of your life, what would you do? And I started getting in touch with this message that was inside of me of I'll have what she's having. And it was my life journey. It was getting in touch with who I am really and the goals that I'd pursued in life that were out of alignment with what I really wanted, but I didn't know till I got there and I was unsatisfied. And really seeing how much even for the creation of money was such a big drive in so many decisions that I'd made in life. And it was like, wait a minute, if this were the last year of my life, this message has to be out in the world. And so that's what led me to start writing the book, doing the television interviews, and really speaking more on this topic.
Well, and it's interesting too, because you've kind of combined all these experiences that you've had with something that you're passionate about with a very unique like twist or angle. And it's something that is very clear, especially considering a lot of the media opportunities that you've had to share this message, is creating that, for lack of a better word, we'll call it a hook that people start to gravitate towards. And they're like, I want to have what she's having. Everybody's kind of in tune with that. And when they hear that, they're like, tell me more. I want to, Vanessa, what is it that you have to share on this topic? And so I think it's a really great approach that you've taken.
Well, and frankly, it ties into speaking and it ties into sales and
Yep.
it ties into business building and branding, because the same thing that has people say, I'll have what you're having, is the same thing that has them say, I want to work with you, or I'm enrolled, or you've just spoken about. It's our magnetism, it's our connection to what's really going on inside of our heart and our purpose for why we're even presenting that speech or that talk. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is the same thing, but I'm talking about it from a place of being first.
Yeah.
Versus a place of doing or doing the activity. Let's go back to how are we showing up in the world as the foundation for that.
Love it. Well, let me ask you this too before we move on, because I want to dig into your personal journey and some of the things that you've learned and struggled. But the last question I have on this particular aspect is this message. Is it something that you're targeting specifically towards female professional audiences? Are you just going broad with it? I'm really curious to find out, how you're approaching that.
Well, interestingly, the message is not just for females. So I do have men that are my clients because I'm a speaker and a coach. But I fell in love with the title so much and I was able to secure the trademark on it. And it's just such a popular phrase made well known from When Harry Met Sally, of course, that it just had a very big appeal and a sense of it was a hook for people. And so because of that, I've used it as a primary branding message around that.
Awesome. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about how did this all get started? Did you have experiences early on in life where you were like, I want to be a speaker, or I want to share my message from the stage, or I want to work with people, in training situations to take them through, a learning process or whatever? Where did this all begin for you?
Well, it did. It's been a part of my passion for a really long time. When I was growing up, my dad had me on Stephen Covey's leadership programs. I mean, like back then, it was a big investment to buy a couple $100 leadership program and these audios and everything that would come in. And I just was hooked on it. And so as a matter of fact, I studied organizational interpersonal communications in undergrad. I went on to get my MBA, but in my undergrad, it was a lot about communications and lots of practice speaking. And so as a matter of fact, I had the honor of being chosen my graduation year in college to be the commencement speaker. So here, 4 years of training on that. And then I got to speak before an audience of 10,000. It's the largest audience to date that I've spoken in front of, but it was such an anchor in like, oh my gosh, this is such a platform to make an impact and a difference, that I've always believed that our communication and our people skills are the most important skills that we can cultivate and be able to get our message out and impact the world.
So, okay, you've kind of been on this path then. In fact, the Stephen Covey training, was that prior to the 10 Habits of Effective People or around the same time?
I don't know how old that book, but he had like a leadership institute and you could get all these articles. And I believe the book was out around that time. It seems like I don't recall it coming out after. But it was just, he was the very first person that was like a life coach and author and speaker. And although I didn't pursue that as my career, I knew that those would be elements of my career before I got on the path that I'm on now.
Yeah. Well, so then the one thing I'm wondering is if you studied interpersonal skills, communication, you did this very, 10,000 people for a commencement speech. That's pretty impressive. Some may think, oh, well, Vanessa, she's kind of she's got this locked down. She's obviously done a lot of training around speaking. But what are some of the things that you've struggled with? Maybe was it anything leading up to that commencement speech? Were you completely nervous when you got up to deliver that speech? Is there anything that you could share with us regarding your struggles that you've had in any way, shape, or form?
Well, I was definitely nervous during that talk. I mean, when I listened to the audio, you could hear my voice quiver at the very beginning. But, since then, this is the biggest lesson that I've taken away in my work as a speaker, because I got most of my speaking started taking place about 9 years ago when I entered into the network marketing industry. And I was fortunate enough to have some amazing success in a short amount of time. And so everybody was really seeking out, how did you do it, Vanessa? How did you do it? And so I was training a lot. I was speaking a lot. And then went on and did it at another company, built to the top in a second company, and was their featured trainer and speaker, and emceed their live events, hundreds of people. And I loved it. It was such a beautiful, that you were impacting people's lives. And it was such an honor. But I did not know how much there were two things that I was missing to make my work even more powerful. I was being asked all the time to speak, but the things that I was missing in my talk were, one, I was not connecting to my heart as deeply as I could have.
Yep.
And secondly, I did not know the power of a call to action when people are in their most inspired state. So I would constantly get feedback from people. You were so inspiring. You impacted my life. And yet at the same time, I saw how I was leaving on the table the opportunity to have them seal the impact of that in their own life and make a call to action, whatever it was, right? It didn't have to be into something I was selling, but a call to action of implementation in their own life or something else. But I'll give you an example of the connection to my heart. Specifically, I remember this was one talk that I did when I was going through this lesson of realizing that so much of my life I had the achievements and the recognition and all of that in my career were what I was putting my value in.
Right.
And I was going through this lesson of recognizing, Vanessa, who you are as your core, as a person, unattached to those things. That's what people want to see. That's what they want to hear. Your humanity, your how you've come to have the successes that you've had from a place of like how you're dealing with the humanness, with the human emotions like everybody else is. And I remember, because I was going through that as a personal lesson, I went and did a talk. And no lie, my topic had to be, Vanessa, we want you to train on how to throw a tasting party. And this was for a network marketing product. But in that talk, I shared that new heart lesson that I was learning. And I said, how many of you in this audience, that where you are right now, what your name tag says right now, is no indication of where you see yourself? How many of you know this is just a vehicle, that what you see inside of yourself, the current circumstance that you're going through, does not define your value? And even if you're at the top, that it's not your anchor for your self-worth. And I got to share about, even with my husband and I, and lessons that we were learning about every day. We get to choose the path of thriving, barely surviving, or path towards divorce. Like I shared, like that. These were the things that were coming out in, and we accomplished how to throw a tasting party. But it moved the audience. They were like, that was your most powerful talk, because I let those things that were near and dear to my heart, I weaved them into the topic so that I was sharing the rawness of who I was as a person. And that's what the audience connected with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that so many people that I work with struggle with because you think you need to get up there and just like you said, it's here's the ABCs, one, two, threes of throwing a tasting party, which great. I mean, we could probably get that information with a quick Google search, right?
Right.
But to be able to share your struggles, your story, things that you're passionate about, the things that, like you said, are near and dear to you, those are the same things that your audience is most likely probably going through themselves. And when you can make that connection, it brings things to a completely new level to where you're making an impact beyond just sharing the information or giving them, here's kind of these steps that you should follow to accomplish an end goal. There's so much more to it than that. And then that is what inspires people to really go out and take that message, to take that information that you've given to them in that window of time and do something with it. It's incredible.
Well, and interestingly, I created a speaker reel, and on my website is the speaker reel. You can see it. It's like a minute and 30 seconds. But I just handed over the whole 20-minute talk to my videographer, and he cut it down, and he included this piece in that speaker reel where my voice choked because I was sharing something that was so important and heartfelt for me. And I remember watching it and feeling like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing, right? Because as speakers, we know the power of our voice is so important. And I was totally cracking. It was barely coming out. You could tell I was on the verge of tears. And that video, the feedback people have gotten, like that piece, they connected with who I was as a person. It was so heartfelt and genuine. They're like, Vanessa, that you need to leave that in there. Yeah. Everyone was saying, leave that in there. And as a matter of fact, that video has led to the speaking invitation I got for this summer in June, where I'll be speaking at it's for the largest Asian Network Marketers Association is meeting. I got an email from this gentleman in Thailand, and he said, come. This year it's being hosted in the Philippines. We want you to come. Your unique message, what I've read from your posts and being on your email list. This was somebody I didn't even know personally, inviting me to share the stage with people who've been in the industry 30 years plus. So it's such an honor. And so it's those two key points of don't hide who you really are when you're in touch with your emotion. Document it, even if it's just in a journal, and how can you share that through your message? And the call to action piece, I went to a talk, and I probably should not say the name of the person, but this is a renowned person, speaker, spiritual leader, and they're running for a political office. And I went to their event that was being held, and I wanted to see. I want to experience this, right? We're speakers. I love experiencing those who are really wonderful in their craft, so I can learn how to be better. And I was there, and I was looking for the heart. I was looking for why would we be enrolled in this political campaign. And it was interesting at the very end. And this is where that call to action was so clearly missing, because I believe when people are at that peak, here were people this was like her coming out party is saying, I'm running for office. Yep. The people in the audience that were there were most likely to be the ones that would start the ripple of who would support her in that campaign. And yet the call to action was so weak. Even what was on the screen did not match what was being said from her mouth. And then it ended up like hundreds of people walking out the door and being handed little sheets of paper to fill out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're missing the opportunity that was while people were engaged to say, text this number right now. What are you willing to give? What home parties are you willing to host? What is your level of engagement in this campaign while they're at their peak? And so that's something I've committed myself to always make certain that I'm doing in any type of event that I speak at.
Yeah, it's huge. And like you said earlier, it doesn't have to be like you're trying to sell something or you're trying to raise money. I mean, I would say it's even, I mean, if you're not doing that, then shame on you from a business perspective. But if you're just sharing information or you're sharing, your personal journey, whatever it is, to still give your audience that call to action so that they go and they make a change in their life. I mean, for all of us that want to get up in front of an audience and share a message, I mean, that's the motivation is you want to be able to have an impact on those lives versus just getting up there and talking for 30, 45, 60 minutes, whatever it is. And so in your presentation, whether you're selling something or not, making sure that you have a clear call to action. You've shared this with me. What do I do with it now? Oh, okay. I'm going to go and do that.
Hmm.
Very powerful and effective technique. I'm so glad to have you share that.
Yeah, it changed the game, and I believe that the art of enrollment is the same whether you're enrolling somebody in a mission, in an idea, in a new way of thinking, or enrolling them in a program, or enrolling them into taking action in some other way. It's a call to action of an enrollment when they're in that state of peak inspiration. And I love what the word inspiration means at its core. The word inspire means to breathe life into. And I love that it's the same vehicle that breathes life is the same vehicle that we use to speak. And so that's what I believe. I'm like, okay, God, use my words, use what I share. Anytime that I get the chance to speak, may my words breathe life into others, because that's my purpose, that breathe life into them, that they would live their life in such a way that they understand how they're uniquely themselves can be that, and then can go and create that as a business.
I love it. Cool. Well, Vanessa, I want to talk a little bit about your experience with business. Maybe you can just touch upon some of the things that you've done, up until the recent, professional role that you've taken on with coaching and teaching and speaking. But I'm really curious, out of all the success that you've had in business, why this dream of launching a coaching and speaking business? What was the thing for you that said, you said, this is what I want to do. This is the direction that my life has taken me and the thing that I'm passionate about.
Well, I've always seen business as a vehicle to set captives free. And there's this film you've probably seen, it's Schindler's List, and it's this end scene where there's a businessman, Oskar Schindler, who is a greedy German businessman, and this is a true story. And during the Holocaust time, he used to own factories that were solely focused on profit. And all of a sudden, he had a conversion in his heart, and he said, you know what? How many Jews can I save if I employ them in my factories? And he set this out as a mission. And at the end of the film, it shows how the Jews all contributed any little bit of gold that they had in their teeth. They melted it down to create a ring, and inscribed in that gold ring was the phrase that meant, translated to, he who has saved one life has saved the world entire. And my passion is to coach the Oskar Schindlers of the world, people who have a platform. They may have a business. They may have a platform as a speaker. They may have a sphere of influence. And they're saying, how can I use what I've been given in this vehicle to set captives free? How can I tap into the uniqueness of my story, the God-given gifts that I've been given, and the unique way that I can contribute to people's lives to set them free from fear, from limitation thinking, from anything else in their life that would hold them bound? And in business, it's so powerful because people spend the most time being fearful about money. It's the number one concern. It's the number one thing that contributes to divorce. And so I love that business is a vehicle where you can empower people to, one, make money, two, utilize their business as a vehicle for impact in the world, and really empower them to create something that is legacy, that it's the why of what they're doing is even more powerful than what they're doing. And so that's why I'm so passionate about working with entrepreneurs and speakers, and that's why I coach, is because I was doing it for other companies. And I said, you know what? This is my passion. Why don't I get to do it on my own rather than building other people's companies, as a distributor or as an employee? And let me just go out on my own, because then I'm unfiltered in what I'm able to do in my work.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's my passion. I believe it's my life work to do this.
Excellent. Well, as somebody who has had obviously, great success in business, I'm wondering, with this particular business, and let's just say the business of speaking, and this is something we don't talk too much about on the show, because I usually focus on techniques, tips, and tricks for speaking, but would love to hear from you. Is there any unique challenges that you've had with launching your speaking business, things that maybe there's not an apples to apples comparison from the past businesses that you've had? Is there anything like that that you might share for anybody else thinking about starting down this path of professional speaking?
I think the biggest challenge that you will hear mixed messages in the marketplace around is the message that says, what does the market want? And give that to them, or do what you love and the money will follow. Believe me, I have pursued both paths. And the interesting thing is that last fall I had decided, because I was primarily I had sold a business a couple years ago. I was doing my coaching and speaking full time, and I was primarily working with people one-on-one. And it wasn't until last fall, that I decided to move more into online space. And I was doing a launch, and I was invested huge with Facebook ads and different things like that. And the launch was looking disastrous. I had a company trying to sue me. I had invested so much money. Facebook shut down my domain. They wouldn't let me post it. All these different things were going wrong. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? How am I going to do this? And I was at this breaking point of feeling like, what is wrong with me? What am I not getting about marketing? I'm trying to make a difference. And it was this approach at the time was run the Facebook ads and see what the market will buy. Test it. And I believe it's powerful to do that. But what made the biggest difference for me was when one of my coaches said, Vanessa, because I was in this breakdown point, I was in tears. I thought this $15,000 that I'd invested in, which was like on 0% interest credit card, because I was going to do this online thing, and it was looking disastrous. And he said, what the market wants. Because I was like, I'm trying to give the market what the market wants. He said, beep, what the market wants. If this were the last year of your life, what would you do? And that's where that question came. And that's when I said, the message of my book. The message of my book. Now, here's the key thing, Brian, that took place. I was not launching a program, or anything related to my book at the time. It was a program of business, how to sell without being salesy or pushy, and how to grow a powerful business online. And it was focused at that time for network marketers. But because I was tapped into my purpose and my passion, I did a webinar, Google Hangout, and invited people into strategy sessions with them. And my strategy session conversion rate was like at 90%. Virtually everybody was saying yes. Why? Because I was tapped into that source of my purpose and passion in such a way that people were saying, I've got to have what you're having. I want to work with you. I want this. And it enrolled them so powerfully in it that people were saying, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing on these sessions?" And that's what I believe is so powerful is that, and I didn't even have a sales page up. I didn't have the details up. It was like what was showing up with the people I was having the sessions with. I was saying, okay, here's this need that they have. And here's what is showing congruent with that deep passion that I have and my purpose. And so, how marrying the two together was able to powerfully serve them, have a radically successful launch, and be able to, it was like that combo of what does the market want and also doing what I love, because that was the best version of me that was showing up.
I mean, that's so true. In fact, when you first mentioned those two paths to take, I was thinking, how great is it to be able to get where both of those are in sync, where you've got something
Yes.
that you're passionate about, something that fires you up and gets you excited, and then is also what the market needs and something that is going to help people with a solution to a problem that they have. And
And
when
I
you've
don't know
got
who
that,
it was
it's
that said it, but he said, I forget who it was, the originator, but it's when your great passion and the world's great need intersect.
yep,
That's that sweet spot.
perfect. All right, Vanessa, well, let's take a quick break. We're going to come
Okay.
back and finish up with the rapid fire Q&A.
Okay.
Are you looking for a proven system to help prepare focused, crystal clear talks that you deliver with confidence and power? Look no further than the SCORE Conference, hosted by my friends Michael Hyatt and Ken Davis. Several past guests like Jeff Goins, Kerry Wilkerson, Paul Evans, and others have all attended this event. I've personally experienced this training and use it every single day. It's the only program that goes beyond just overcoming fear or tackling delivery techniques. I'm not exaggerating when I say this stuff will change your life. The next training is in Orlando the first week of May, and I've got something sweet for you. $200 off your registration if you use the discount code SPEAK right now. That's SPEAK. You'll also be automatically entered into a drawing to have your entire registration fee waived. How cool is that? The winner will be selected April 28th. Just go to whatthespeak.com/score and don't forget the discount code SPEAK. All right, Vanessa. So to round out our discussion, let's end on a strong note with the rapid fire Q&A portion. So the first thing that comes to your mind, we'll answer that question or have you answer that question, and then we'll move right on to the next one. You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So when you give a presentation or a talk, are you typically a slide or no slide kind of gal?
I prefer no slides, but if I'm doing training, I like a couple anchor slides for key points that I want, but I leave space so that I can have that free flow of energy and not be tied to the slides themselves.
Yep, that is a good approach to take. All right, so who is one speaker that's inspired you the most and why?
You know what?
It's a tough choice. If you had to pick one,
It's a movie. Here I am with my movie analogies, but I would have to be William Wallace in Braveheart,
oh yeah,
and leading the charge of the troops and that passionate, deep felt speech. I mean, my goodness, that's the epitome to me of somebody laying it all out. Their heart, everything of themselves is left out on the battlefield. And how many people are just ignited by that and saying, yes, I want that. I'm with you.
yep. No, that's a really good example. I've never really thought much about the different presentations, so to speak, or speeches that you hear in movies, but there's so many good ones. I'm always like, oh, I wish I would have said that. All right, so William Wallace. Well, our next question is sometimes a fun one, an interesting one. But I would love to know, out of all the different opportunities you've had to stand before an audience, is there one time in particular that something crazy or bizarre, funny, silly, what have you, has occurred while you were standing before that audience?
Well, I will say be very careful to ever do Q&A after a talk. And I had done an amazing talk, if I don't say so myself. The feedback I got and just everybody's reaction to this talk that I did while I was up in Michigan. And then, unfortunately, somebody raised their hand. And I should have trusted my intuition, but I went ahead and let her ask her question. But she didn't ask a question. She hijacked the event and she was sharing like this radically personal, sad. And so my heart was both torn between empathy and yet at the same time saying, oh my God, she's just turned the entire feeling of the event downward and hijacked this event. And so I did not cut it off. And people were like, I mean, afterwards they're like, oh my gosh, that was painful to watch.
That sounds like a tough one. And it's one of those things like you don't want to be rude
Insensitive.
or yeah, you want to be sensitive to that because obviously it sounds like they're pouring their heart out, but at the same time it does completely take the energy of the room in a different direction than where you may want to end that presentation or that talk or whatever it is. So,
Yes,
okay.
so I'm always prepped for that again, and just like you can just genuinely say, you know what, this sounds like an important conversation that we should have one off. So let's talk after this, and then wrap it up and pull them together again.
That's always a learning lesson, isn't it? All right, Vanessa, how big of an impact has your ability to get up in front of an audience and communicate your message had on your career?
I believe message is everything. As a matter of fact, I train that your message is your marketing because it opens all kinds of doors, whether it's interviews, television, radio, telesummits, being asked to be on stage. The more you're out there, the more you're putting your message out there, you have people being able to resonate and you're pulling in your right clients and other like-minded people. Like it's such an honor to be here with you. It just, in your passion, the work that you're doing to train people to be effective with this gift of the capacity to be able to speak. I just love what comes from us not being hindered, not being held back, and getting our work out there powerfully.
Cool. All right. Well, our final question is what advice would you give somebody who's just starting and out of all the experiences, struggles that you've had getting out there? What's like the one thing that you wish you knew that you would share with this person who's just beginning themselves?
Like I said, just being connected to your heart is such a key thing to see what's really important to you and the parts of your story that are impactful, that underneath it all is a sense of purpose. And Brian, I know you and I talked about this in advance, but I do have a gift because I so believe in empowering speakers with this. A starter kit is just a free gift. It's a little starter kit that asks what kinds of questions to ask yourself so that you are connected to your heart. You are connected to the powerful parts of your story that you can weave no matter what subject you speak on. And so it's a Discover Your Purpose starter kit. And I don't know, do you want me to share?
What's the link? And we'll be sure to put it in the show notes.
It's specifically for your audience. So it's vanessahorn.net/what-the-speak.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I think that this is one of those things that, if you are struggling with trying to find, that connection or, the thing that really is like the spark that gets you going when you're speaking, definitely check out Vanessa's resource that she's got because I've seen it with folks that I've worked with and trained that when they're able to find that and it clicks, it's unstoppable. To see them go from being very timid and shy and unsure about sharing this information to where now they can take something that they absolutely love, thing that when they talk to somebody, whether it's in a group or one-on-one, you see that spark in their eye, and great things happen when you're able to tap into that. And so if you're struggling with your message or the things that you share, this is definitely going to be a great resource for you.
And then just share it, practice, get it out, take video clips, do whatever it is to just say it and share it every opportunity you get.
Awesome. All right, Vanessa. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a blast to hear all of the things that you've been involved in and the lessons. It sounds like you've learned some really great things along the way to share with us. You are absolutely somebody that kicks ass when they speak, present, or pitch. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Struggling with feeling comfortable in front of an audience when you present? Or maybe you're confident, but you have difficulty stumbling over filler words like and ah. Well, you can start kicking ass today by signing up for our weekly VIP updates. As a bonus, you'll also receive 11 free tips that will uncover 6 psychological secrets to public speaking, plus 5 tips on how to stop using filler words. Go to whatthespeak.com/VIP.
All right, here we go with the outro.
Thanks so much for joining us today on What to Speak. Be sure to visit whatthespeak.com for show notes on every episode and to sign up for our email list to stay updated on resources that'll help you kick ass when you speak, present, or pitch.